Dance. A beautiful mesh of sound and movement and meaning, full of colorful costumes and symbolic gestures. Many countries tell their cultural stories through dance. Nowhere is that more true than in Mexico's Ballet Folklorico, where a series of dances tell the stories of the states. The most widely recognized of these being the Jarabe Tapatio, or the Mexican hat dance, from the state of Jalisco. From tequila to mariachi, Jalisco claims many recognizably Mexican traditions, but it's this dress, with its flowing skirts and yards of ribbon, that show the beauty and history of the Mexican people, and remains one of the most widely recognized cultural costumes today. Our journey to understand the significance of this costume started in San Antonio, Texas's historic Market Square, a 3-block outdoor plaza where you can enjoy the sights and flavors of old Mexico. At the market's indoor mall, I had the opportunity to watch the dance group Ballet Folklorico Festival, the dance group that is featured in this video.
Very glad to have you here at Historic Market Square, where there's always a fiesta here in Farmers Market and outside in the plaza, ladies and gentlemen. And we're going to take you on a little tour of our neighbor to the south, highlighting along the way, I hope, some of the significance of our neighbor to the south to the United States, San Antonio, and indeed the world.
This was my first time to see a performance of Mexico's folk dances. I was captured by the speed of the steps and the beauty of the costumes. Each dance was different, with its own origin and meaning, yet all seemed connected somehow. To learn more about how this group works, I sat down with the director, Bruce Gonzalez, and announcer, Dennis Medina.
Well, we're here weekly, every weekend, here at the Market Square, Farmers Market, and we travel all over the United States, sometimes in Mexico. We did also a show in Colombia. We were there for 10 days, a couple years back. I myself traveled to Tokyo, Japan to go teach for 10 days. We do different regions of Mexico. I mean, there's like different states, like the state of Veracruz, Jalisco, Oaxaca, Chiapas, Guerrero, Nuevo León. There's just different states in Mexico. We represent everything. So.
And in those states, you do traditional dances.
Traditional dances, yeah.
Different states. So, would you say that the style of ballet folklorico has been around
forever. Yeah.
Well, it varies also, because some of the dances, like
even people in the Aztec, people used to do it.
We have some Indian dances.
Yeah, I mean, it goes all the way back to them, you know.
Some other dances have been choreographed like since 1956 and stuff, so it just depends on the region, the dance, they're all different.
Having experienced some live dancing and doing a little dancing of my own, I wanted to learn more about the costumes and the meaning behind the dances from Jalisco and other states. Luckily, a good friend of mine just happened to be a costume technician and a folklorico dancer.
Hello, my name is Vanessa Lopez. I'm a former folklorico dancer. I grew up in El Paso, Texas, and it's primarily a Hispanic culture. So folklorico was everywhere in El Paso. It's like the norm. Every single wedding, every party, every celebration you went to, there was always folklorico dancers, there was always mariachis. Ballet folklorico, to me, is supposed to be, I know it sounds very cliche, but like a celebration of all of Mexico and all the beauty it has to offer, and, sharing the narratives from the different cultures. But every single state has their own version of their history and how they came to be. Just like the United States, the Midwest is a way different place than the Southwest. The songs are always the same. Every region has their specific songs. It's just each director's take and interpretation on that that state and that song and what that song is saying. But pretty much there are basic steps that every group uses, and they just use their own combinations to make different zapateados. So zapateado is like it literally means like step. My favorite region or group of dances to do, and also my favorite costume, is the Veracruz costume, which is this white one right here. And so the state of Veracruz, it's on the eastern coast of Mexico, and it was a really important port when the Spaniards were coming in and colonizing Mexico. And so it's by the sea, and the white of the costume is meant to depict, the airiness and the waves of the ocean. And a lot of Veracruz music has a lot of harps, because it has a lot of Afro-Spanish influences, like the song La Bamba that everybody knows. It's from the state of Veracruz. Chiapas dress. Chiapas is it's a rainforest. The state has a rainforest, so it's very wet and tropical. So the embroidery on this dress is supposed to depict the different flora and fauna that exist in Chiapas, and the black is supposed to signify the darkness of the rainforest as a background to all this floral paradise that's there. The most iconic one that everybody knows about is Jalisco. So when you think of a folklorico dancer, just a stereotypical folklorico dancer, most people think of the state of Jalisco, because she's the iconic one. She looks like a flower twirling around. And a lot of people don't know this, but a lot of folklorico costumes, they have a lot of Indian influence, a lot of Hindu influence, because when they were coming over to Mexico, they brought a lot of their slaves, and a lot of them were Indian. So like the China Poblana, she was folklore has it that she was an Indian slave. Her name was Mirna, and they brought her to the city of Puebla, and the villagers who lived in Puebla, they were so intrigued by her, and they adored her and her fashions, and she encouraged them to incorporate a lot of Hindu culture into their costumes. So that's why the ribbons are so bright and colorful. That's why there's so many sequins on the China Poblana, because she brought that little touch of Hindu culture and left it in Mexico. Yeah, every single dress is made with a purpose or with some sort of narrative. It's not just, oh, we like flowers, let's put some flowers on it. Every flower is there for a reason. Yeah, it represents their history, their narrative, exactly, their roots. They're trying to tell their version of what impact their particular state had on Mexico and their culture, where they came from. So when you see a specific dress, you go, oh, that dress is definitely from Chiapas. It's not from Monterrey or Nuevo León.
But where did this modern collection of folk dances come from? I visited the University of Texas's Latin American Studies Department, where I met Dr. Lara Gutierrez, who explained that modern ballet folklorico actually had its origins in the Mexican Revolution.
So the Mexican Revolution of 1910 was a socialist revolution, meaning that its intention was to denounce the ways in which Mexico's wealth was unevenly distributed, right? I mean, it was an oligarchy, it was a dictatorship, meaning that the wealth was in the power of 10 families, meaning that, people were working the land, but it didn't, necessarily belong to them.
The war was waged for nearly 7 years, with demands for social reforms and equality, culminating in the proclamation of the current constitution, the political constitution of the United Mexican States. In addition to this new document, the new government also sought to create a new national identity, one that would incorporate all the peoples and cultures living within Mexico's borders.
What do you do when, campesinos or peasants or indigenous people never felt that they actually belonged? You kind of had to persuade them that this was their country, right? So culture was used very astutely to create a sense of national identity that was not necessarily there before, at least not in a cohesive form, right?
The new identity of Mexico became one of mestizaje, or cultural and racial mixing.
The motto or the paradigm that was used in Mexico was to say that we are all mestizos or mestizas, meaning that we are all a product of miscegenation. We're all racially mixed, in other words, right?
One way culture was used to further the idea of mestizaje was through the indigenous and social dances of the regions of Mexico. Dances from colonial Spanish and indigenous religious ceremonies were taken from their original contexts and presented as a national dance repertoire, the most famous of which was developed by Amalia Hernandez, the founder of the National Ballet Folklorico of Mexico.
So the repertoire that is now sort of easily understood as ballet folklorico is because, you know, it was very astutely done in the middle of the 20th century when Amalia Hernandez sort of created her ensemble and the repertoires, right, that were part of the presentation that was done both national but also international. And that's where the, you know, sort of the packaging of what is Mexico is sort of used to point to, right? This is what Mexico is. This is what Mexicans are. This is, you know.
These dances, and especially Jalisco's costumes and dances, have developed into a symbol of Mexico's nationalism, a symbol that has evolved from the revolution and been incorporated into the fabric of what it means to be Mexican.
I mean, I think the Mexican Revolution was successful because it was a huge it used culture, and it was a huge apparatus that knew that the only way to create national identity was by using culture. And I don't know of any other country that did that so well, to the point that now you have very easily identifiable symbols of what is Mexico, right? So you have, you know, especially with dance forms like the jarabe tapatio, right? What is called the Mexican hat dance, right? Or the mariachi sounds, right? There's nothing more Mexican than that. And the way that it came into existence is, you know, after the Mexican Revolution, you see that sort of being raised to the national stage, and it's performed there, and it's repeated so much that you convince people that that's what Mexico is, right?
Modern ballet folklorico, with roots spanning all the way from pre-Columbian Mexico to the countries of the Old World across the sea, has become an icon of Mexican identity, a picture of a united people that has persisted over the last century. By honoring ballet folklorico's history and its message, not only will we costumers represent them faithfully, we might just be able to give our many audiences a glimpse of what it truly means.